Look, if anybody ever asks you why you should get into YouTube or being an influencer, you can just tell them the truth. It's for the free pop sockets and the free tote bags. Hey, it's Chris, and today I'm checking out the Google Pixel 3a, which is like the budget Google Pixel that was just announced. You know what? I've never, ever gotten my hands on a Pixel before. I've wanted to forever, but Google never sent me one until now. So I'm actually really excited to check this out. This review is coming from the perspective of somebody who's really used to using iPhones. But wow, I didn't expect to be this impressed by this device, which costs relatively little compared to all the recent iPhones. In this video, I'm gonna be talking about the camera performance, the longevity, that's something you guys told me you were really interested in hearing about, the build quality, the display, and at the end, how it compares to the iPhone XR. So, as somebody who's really used to using an iPhone, let me just rattle off some of the things that I was really excited to see and happy about using here. Can't even see if you can see this in the camera, but the always-on display. I like that, and you know what? It's pretty useful. I can always see the temperature, the time, and wow, this thing is so light. Of course, it's light because it's plastic, aka polycarbonate, and we're gonna talk about that more later, but yeah, this is the XL model, and it is light. Loving the fast charging, and you know what? I like how it tells you how much time is left until it gets fully charged down at the bottom of the always-on screen, like 21 minutes left till a full charge. That's great. I'm loving this colorful button down here on the side, and it doesn't get covered up when you put a case on it, so it's got a little bit of style. Oh, and I should mention, they did send me the purple-ish color. I don't know why. It's not the one I would have picked. Ish. Squeeze to activate Google Assistant? That is cool, come on. Seriously, Google Assistant, what do you think about Siri?
Siri seems funny.
Definitely, like the gesture navigation on this Pixel 3a. I liked it the first time I saw it on the iPhone. And there's no notch on this Pixel 3a XL, which some people are gonna like, but of course you don't get something like Face ID, which I do kind of miss. I liked it. But you are stuck with a rather big, noticeable forehead and chin. I'm not talking about mine, I'm talking about this forehead and this chin. There is, however, a headphone jack. I like the wireless world, so I don't really care that there's a headphone jack. I'm not gonna use it. And then there's some OS things, right? Like split screen multitasking, that's the kind of stuff that is addicting once you're able to start actually using it. If you guys wanna see a whole nother video on Android Q, the beta, I can load that on here and show you what's going on with that too, so let me know. All right, so the first thing that I really wanna dive into deeply is the camera, because I've been hearing all this hype for years now about Pixel cameras, and I've never experienced it until this last 24 hours. And you know what? The first photo that I ever took on this, I was like, wow, that is clear. The OnePlus phones that I've tested on this channel, they're good phones, but the cameras never impressed me. But this camera actually is very impressive from the very first photo. So it's got a 12.2 megapixel sensor with that f1.8 lens on the back and an 8 megapixel selfie cam. But where it really gets its black belt camera skills from is from all the AI processing. Now the processing has been a little bit weird for me. I've run into a couple bugs. And by the way, the processing is slow. Gonna talk about that when we get to performance. But I took a picture of a mug on my desk and it just wigs out. It freaks out when I'm previewing it, when I'm looking at it. And that's happened to a couple different photos. I'm sure it's something that's gonna get fixed. Before I show you some camera examples and comparisons and talk about those, I do have to say, I am bummed that there's no wide angle selfie cam here. That's something that I've been hearing about on Pixels that I really was excited about, wanted to try, but it's not here, and I understand why, because they had to hold that cost down, right, to get it into this bracket, but still. Looking at the picture of this cold brew coffee though, I think I definitely have to pick the Pixel picture. I like it better. Like the cup itself, it seems a little bit clearer, more defined, and the table, it just looks a little bit more interesting too. And even the red of that chair. Everything just looks a little bit more saturated to me actually. And I like it. All right, and then we have this picture of my backpack with the 360 camera popping out. And I get a lot of great shots this way. And nobody knows I'm shooting at the coffee shop, which is great. I mean, even this, I do prefer the Pixel look over the iPhone XR, I have to say. Like the detail of the screen and the lens and the leather and the texture of the backpack just seems more textury. There's just a little more contrast. I do like the Pixel look better. On this shot of the coffee shop, I think that the colors pop more with the Pixel. The blacks seem a little bit blacker. and maybe that's partly due to the OLED screen. And then things just seem a little bit less washed out. Again, you get more contrast and it's a little bit sharper. It's not a bad look. It's something you can definitely like. In fact, I do like it. All right, so here's a portrait mode photo, and you can see that the iPhone XR really shows you a lot more. It's more of a wide angle, whereas the Pixel really crops in more. But you can see, I think the Pixel looks a little bit more like a DSLR photo here. They've blurred out the background a little bit more and actually did some pretty good clipping around my hair, which usually gives any portrait mode a hard time. Again, the colors pop a little bit more, the blacks are a little bit blacker, and if I zoom in, wow, I don't know if anyone needs to see my face with that much clarity. All right, so next up, here's a shot of a flower, and wow, just the color pops so much more on the Pixel. There's so much more detail in the leaves. I have to tell you, I like the way that the Pixel photo looks better. And even on this picture of the rain-soaked pine, I mean, if you look at the water droplets up close, there's a lot more detail in there. It's really impressive. All right, outdoor selfie portrait mode. I think both cameras had a bit of a hard time with the hair, the clipping, but look at the detail in the jacket even. There's just more detail over on the Pixel side. Night mode, I was super excited about night mode. I wanted to try it, I've been hearing about it, and it really lives up to the hype. Now, of course, the Huawei P30 Pro came along and trashed this, and I haven't even tested out that Huawei. But that's what I've been hearing, and of course it has that crazy zoom, but this is nothing to sneeze at, nothing to scoff at. It really is impressive. Something that's less impressive to me is the new time-lapse feature, because iPhones have had that for what? Forever. But I guess at least it's here now. After checking out the camera, all I can really say is I feel like this phone is really a $400 camera with a phone attached, rather than the other way around. I mean, I would almost buy this just for the camera and haul it around, like to take pictures, because it's so light and awesome. So yeah, there's really nothing to say about it here. As somebody who's been using iPhones almost exclusively since like the 4S, I'm blown away by this camera. It's amazing at this price. Okay, let's talk about performance next. The Pixel 3a is not a race car, okay? It's kind of slow. It's got an old processor, the Snapdragon 670, which is not even close to as good as a Snapdragon 845, which is on the Pixel 3, the flagship Pixel. Do I notice the slowness in like everyday tasks? Sometimes yes, and sometimes only when I hold it up to one of my other phones. But when you're loading an app, it can load slower. There's been some really junky Android phones that I've seen and picked up and tried out before, and one of the hallmarks of these junky phones was the slowness. So to see this be a little bit slow, it kind of doesn't match up in your head with that really great camera. But then you remember, oh, this actually is pretty cheap. So then you forgive it a little bit. Where I really notice that slowness is in photo processing, right? Just normal photos, not even some crazy mode like portrait or HDR, just a regular photo. There's like spinning stuff happening, and it takes a while for it to show you the photo. It shows you one, oh, but it's not done. It's gotta like relayer it and do some stuff to it, and then it's like another version, and then really quick it does some more stuff, and then it's the final version. It took me a long time to explain that. It doesn't take that long to process the photos in real life, but it's not just like in the blink of an eye. You can game on here and have no issues, and your websites might load a little bit slower, but if you're not comparing it side by side to something else, then maybe it's not really a big deal. So this one's just gonna come down to your personal tolerance. Can you put up with it? Yeah. Right now, no big deal. In the future, that might be a different story. And I'll say, I could see a lot of people living with this and not even caring. But that brings up longevity. Like, how long will this phone last? How long can you use it? If you invest in it now, are you gonna be able to use it in 2 years, in 3 years? In 5 years? Probably not. But if this Snapdragon processor isn't even that fast to begin with, then how is it going to work in a few years when the phone starts to slow down, like they always inevitably do? That's the question of the day. Now, talking about the build quality, this is kind of a tricky thing here on this phone for some reason, because it is plasticky / polycarbonate-y, and that makes it seem like it's not as high quality as something that's built out of more metal and glass, like the iPhone XR. But at the same time, it doesn't feel cheap, like when you're holding it. It does feel light, it does feel plasticky, but at the same time, it's not like, oh, this is a piece of garbage. It's surprisingly nice for being plastic. I think that's what I'm trying to say. And I think it's worth saying just one more time, maybe having all that glass and metal is overrated in some instances, because this thing really is really light. And I like that. The display, thankfully, is an OLED screen, which is awesome. That means a couple of things. It means, number one, you're gonna be getting perfect blacks. So it's fun to like turn out the lights and put something on that has some black, whether it's a wallpaper with some black and like some bright colors or lights or something, and you can see that it's real, true, actual black. It's not just pixels that are toned down to like a very dark gray or something. No. One of the reasons that I like that is because it makes things like your photos pop off the screen a lot more. And with a camera like this, that can really help you appreciate that great photo that you just took. It's also part of what allows for that always-on display that I'm liking so much. One thing I don't like about it is that it's only 1080p. Now, would I rather have like a 4K screen or crazy spec screen? Well, yeah, I mean, just to be able to say that and maybe that little bit of difference that you can actually notice is gonna be better. Yeah, but the person buying this isn't just buying it for that. They're buying it because it's cheaper. They can save some money and all the bells and whistles don't really matter. So the fact that it's OLED is great. 1080p, fine. I want to talk a little bit more about this phone versus the iPhone XR. Now, I didn't make the whole video about iPhone XR versus Pixel 3a because I really wanted to give this more of a full Pixel review. But I do want to mention this here at the end because it makes sense. These are the budget options from Apple and Google. So look, let's do this as a rapid fire. If you care about price and just saving money, the obvious answer is to go with the Pixel 3a. If you're looking for the best camera quality above everything else, then I would say obviously go with the Pixel 3a. I mean it, obviously. You can see it in these photos, and if you couldn't tell from the screen, I'm telling you right now, I liked it better on the Pixel 3a than on the XR. Go with the Pixel 3a. But if you want good video quality, better video quality, the best video quality, then go with the iPhone XR because it still wins out in that department. Longevity. If you're looking for something that you can use for a long time, make this investment and not have to make another one next year or the year after or last for as long as you can, then go with the iPhone XR. When it comes to design and looks, I would say if you want that more premium feel, if that's what gets you excited, you have to go with the iPhone XR. But at the same time, the 3A, it doesn't look bad. But I'm just saying, you have the 3A and you hand it off to your friend and they're gonna take a picture, they're gonna notice that plasticiness, right? It's apparent. Digital assistants. When it comes to the digital assistant, you are gonna wanna buy the Pixel 3a if you value convenience above all else. If you value privacy the most, then that's a different story. Google made a big stink about privacy, and Rene Ritchie put it really well, I think, when he said that the new privacy policies are going to protect you from developers on the Google platform pretty well, but are they going to protect you from Google itself? All right, let me answer a few of your questions. Part says, is the lower tier processing really that limiting in day-to-day use? Hey, that is a great point because you know what? It's not all that limiting. Limiting means you can't do something, and you're really not limited by the slightly slower speed here. Unless it gets so slow in like a couple of years that it's really like bugs you and it's not very usable. But right now, I would say, no, it's not limiting. You can do everything that you need to here. If it's just a bit slower, what's the big deal? But is it actually slower than other phones? Yes. And can I notice it? Yeah. Sometimes. Tom says he wants to know about the camera, and more specifically, the camera software. He already knows it's the same as the premium phone, which means it should be awesome, but how about in the context of this actual phone? Does it generally have lower specs? Well, you already know, I've never used the Pixel 3, but I'm very impressed with the camera, and I would say that that processing is the only thing that's kind of annoying, maybe. It's just a little bit slower, I suspect. All right, this question says they want to know if the phone is worth the switch from iPhones. That's an interesting question. If you're really heavily invested into the Apple ecosystem, then it's going to be a tougher switch, right? If you have an Apple TV and an Apple Watch and an iPad, then maybe it's not worth the switch. On the other hand, if you just want to try something new and you don't want it to cost you too much, this may be the phone to do it with. What I can tell you is I don't hate it, the Pixel 3a. It's a nice phone. I enjoy using it. But I can't airdrop from this phone to my Mac, and I can't respond to text messages from this phone on my Mac, right? So there's that continuity stuff. Here's a question from Daniela. Does it pair well with Apple products like AirPods or the Apple Watch? AirPods, yes, but you're not going to be able to get that instant pairing or the iCloud sync. The Apple Watch, no. If you have an Apple Watch and you're going to use the Pixel, it's not going to work. All right, how about a conclusion? This phone, it makes me feel excited because it is cheaper, but it still has an amazing camera, When do you see that combination? Never. You either get one or the other. And honestly, this feels very usable. Yeah, it is a little bit slower, but it's been fun to use. And that's something. Like, it's brought a smile to my face using Night Sight, for instance, right? Using Google Assistant because it does so much. The tote bag. Not the tote bag. That's the thing though, the fun, the smile. This was actually really fun to dig into because it's kind of unbelievable. How can something this cheap have such a good camera? That is interesting. That is innovative. All right, thanks for watching. Let me know what else you want to see in relation to the Pixel 3 versus any of the iPhones or anything else, Android Q, whatever. Leave me a comment. Check out the description. There's lots of good stuff down there. Stuff you wouldn't even dream of or think of would be down in the description of a YouTube video. And don't forget, I'm at Daily Tech, spelled Daily Tekk on Instagram and Twitter. And I'll catch you guys in the next video. Later.